Climate. The climate of Japan is predominantly temperate, and it varies greatly from north to south. Japan's geographic features divided into 6 principal climate zones: Hokkaido, Sea of Japan, Central Highland, Seto Inland Sea, Pacific Ocean, and the Ryukyu Islands. The northernmost zone, Hokkaido, has a humid continental climate with long cold winters and very warm cool summers. Precipitation is not heavy, but the islands usually develop deep snowbanks in the winter. The Sea of Japan is a zone on the Honshu west coast. Western winds bring heavy snowfall in the summer. The region is cooler than the Pacific area, yet it sometimes experiences extremely hot temperatures because of the foreign wind. The Central Highland has a typical inland humid continental climate, with large temperature differences between summer and winter, and between day and night. Precipitation is light, though winters are usually snowy. The mountains of the Shoryuku and the Shikoku regions shelter the Seto Inland Sea from seasonal winds, bringing mild weather year-round. The Pacific coast, a humid subtropical climate, experiences milder winters with occasional snowfall and hot, humid summers, due to the southeast seasonal winds. The Ryukyu Islands have a subtropical climate with warm winters and hot summers. Precipitation is heavy, especially during the rainy season. This generally humid temperature exhibits marked seasonal variation, such as the blooming of the spring cherry blossom, and the cause for the summer cicada and the fall foliage colors that are celebrated in art and literature. The average winter temperature in Japan is 5.1 degrees Celsius, and the average summer temperature is 25.2 degrees Celsius. The highest temperature ever measured in Japan was 40.9 degrees Celsius, which is 105.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and was recorded on August 16, 2007. The main rainy season begins in early May in Okinawa, and the rain front gradually moves north until reaching Hokkaido in the late July. In most of Honshu, the rainy season moves between the middle of June and lasts about 6 weeks in late summer. Prehistory of Japan. Japan is a Paleolithic culture that developed around 30,000 BC and is one of the first known habitation of the Japanese archipelago. This was followed from around 14,000 BC by the Mesolithic to Neolithic semi-sedentary hunter-gatherer culture, who included ancestors of both the contemporary Ainu people and Yamato people, characterized by pit-dwelling and rudimentary agriculture. The decorated clay vessels from this period are some of the oldest surviving examples of pottery in the world. Around 300 BC, the Yayoi people began to enter the Japanese islands, intermingling with the Jomon, and the Zanjo period, starting around 500 BC, saw the introduction of practices like wet rice farming and a new style of pottery and metallurgy introduced from China and Korea. Modern-day history. In 1947, Japan adopted a new constitution emphasizing liberal democratic practices. The Allied occupation ended with the Treaty of San Francisco in 1952, and Japan was granted membership in the United Nations in 1956. Japan later achieved rapid growth to become the second largest economy in the world, until surpassed by China in 2010. This ended in the mid-1990s when Japan suffered a major recession in the beginning of the 21st century. Positive growth has signaled and the gradual economic recovery. On March 11, 2011, Japan suffered the strongest earthquake in its recorded history that triggered the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, one of the worst disasters in the history of nuclear power. Japanese healthcare. In Japan, healthcare is provided by the national and local governments. Payment for personal medical services is offered through a universal healthcare insurance system that provides relatively equality for access, with fees set by the government committee. People without insurance through employees can participate in a national health insurance program administered by local governments. Japan's economy. Some of the structural features for Japan's economy growth developed during the Edo period, such as the network transport routes by the road and water, and the future contracts, banking, and insurance of the Osaka Nice brokers. During the Meiji period from 1868, Japan expanded economically with an embrace of the market economy. Asia. The period of overall real economic growth is from the 1960s to 1980s, and Japan emerged and has been called the Japanese post-war economic miracle. It averaged on 7.5% in the 1960s, and in the 1970s, 3.2%. Growth was slowly marked by the 1990s, during what the Japanese called the lost decade, due to the after effects of the Japanese asset price bubble, and the domestic policies intended to wing speculative excesses from the stock and real estate markets. Government efforts to revive economic growth met with little success and were further hampered by the global slowdown in 2000. The economy showed strong signs of recovery after 2005. Japan has a large industrial capacity, and it is home to the largest and most technologically advanced producers of motor vehicles, electronics, machine tools, steel and non-ferrous materials, ships, chemical substances, textiles, and processed foods. Agricultural businesses in Japan cultivate 13% of the Japanese land. Japan accounts for nearly 15% of the global fish catch. As of 2010, Japan's labor force consisted of 65.9 million workers. Japan has a low unemployment rate, around 4%. Japan's main imports are machinery and equipment, fossil fuels, foodstuffs, especially beef, chemicals, textiles, raw materials for its industries. Japan is a constitutional monarchy, where the power of the emperor is very limited. He is like a ceremonial figurehead and is defined by the constitution as a symbol of the state of unity of the people. The power is held by the Prime Minister of Japan and the other elected members of the Diet. Sovereignty is vested in the Japanese people. Akihito is the current emperor of Japan. Naruhito is the crown prince of Japan, and he stands next in line to the throne. Japan's legislative organ is the National Diet, a bicameral parliament. The Diet consists of the House of Representatives with 480 seats, elected by the popular vote every 4 years. A House of Councilors equals 242 seats. The popular elected members serve 6-year terms. There is universal suffrage for adults over 20 years of age, and the secret ballot for elected officials. The Diet is dominated by Social Liberal Democratic Party of Japan and the Conservative Liberal Democratic Party. This party has enjoyed nearly continuous electoral success since 1955, except for an 11-month period break between 1993 and 1994. Statutory law originates in Japan's legislature and has the rubber stamp on the emperor. The constitution requires that the emperor promulgates legislation passed by the Diet, without giving him a specific power to oppose legislation. Japan's court system is divided into 4 basic tiers, the Supreme Court and 3-level lower courts. The main body of Japanese statutory law is called 6 codes.